All right, we just went through a lot of information on navigating the Finder and how to find files. Let's look at some best practices here, things like file naming, for example. First of all, use folders liberally. You can see here, this is my genealogical information. At the top level is a folder that actually I share with my wife. So she and I both share this folder for genealogy. Under that is family history, and under that is documents. So this is for my genealogical documentation, things like birth and death certificates, census information, and so forth. And you can see here there's a subfolder for census, and even then there's subfolders for specific family names, surnames. So I've made a pretty good use of nested folders here. The second one is what I call desktop minimalism. And let's say that is your desktop. Is that minimal? I don't think so. I have actually seen people that have desktops like this, and truthfully, they know where everything is. But certainly if someone else looked at it, they wouldn't know. All right, so what do we mean by desktop minimalism? First of all, move items to the documents folder if you want to keep them. And we've been talking about that all along. Move it to the appropriate place. There's a thing called stacks in the Finder that's specific to the desktop. And if you have the Finder active, go to the View menu and then say Use Stacks. And there's a shortcut for that. And then you can group those stacks by different kind. And I'm going to show you that in a second what it looks like. It's a quick and dirty way to clean up your desktop. Yeah, you still have lots of stuff on your desktop, but it kind of unwinds it for you. And then if you do put something on the desktop, try to make it temporary, like weeks, maybe months. I'm sure I have some that are years, but you shouldn't do that. All right, so we were talking about using stacks. So see, I'm currently using stacks. You can see my desktop here. I have two backup drives. I alternate backup drives, and then my hard disk. If I turn stacks off, what a mess. And then if I turn it back on, like that. So I'm grouping stacks by kind. I can group them on any of these other attributes. If I don't use stacks, I can clean them up. Say, let's clean them up by kind, all right? Or I can clean them up by date created, let's say. And then I can still use stacks, and they will stack on top of each other. So you can see here is PDF documents. If I click on that, it expands. These are all the PDF documents on my desktop. These are all the screenshots on my desktop. And you can see I've got a fair number of those. So that's how stacks work. And finally, the best practices number 3, use consistent file and folder names. You can add information like dates, project names, and so forth to the file names themselves. That makes them easier to find. And use different folder names for a different subject. I mean, that obviously makes sense. You want to name the folder something that indicates what the contents are, whether it's, say, invoices or 2002 in the case, or 2022 in the case of my tax documentation. So you have a folder name that's meaningful for the contents. If you're doing project-oriented work, then just like we just mentioned, when you start a new project, create a new folder specifically for that project. And that folder itself may be in, say, a folder that is the year. So you have a collection of 2022 projects, 2023 projects, whatever helps you sort through finding these things. So, and we just talked about this, consider using years or months or a combination of year and month for the folder name. so that you can easily separate them out. And you saw, for example, in part 2, we talked about photographs for my genealogy. Those are organized by year, 1960, 1970. And just try to develop the habit of doing this. And one of the things I always do is say, oh, I'll get to that later. And, 18 months later, I'll look in my desktop and find a folder that I knew I should have put away. But I considered, I just put it off. So do it right away. And similarly, downloads and your junk on your desktop, clean those up right away before you forget about it. So we're going to leave you with some useful Finder keyboard shortcuts. And actually, Apple in their user guide has a lot of these. This is sort of the ones that I use. So I've kind of plucked some of them out here. And some websites that you can go to. Obviously, a Google search will reveal these in more detail. All right, so that's it. Thank you for watching our presentation on Where's My Stuff, and we will have that occasionally. We will have it in person at the Senior Center.